we start on this stage in the Intercontinental Hotel in Bucharest to start talking about the outcomes, the amazing outcomes of this project. We call this session Sabrina's most important outcomes. So 1.5 hours of amazing results with a great team. Thank you so much for allowing me as Green Revolution to join this partnership with you. It was a great trip. It is still a great trip because now we have to talk about our results. And who is better than our Austrian colleague from the Austrian Road Safety Board, Klaus, Machata. You will moderate this session and I'm happy to have you here. Please join me on the stage. Welcome to Bucharest. Yesterday you did not have time to cycle a bit around, but I hope today you will have time to do so. What would you tell me? Olivera said the biggest problem from her point of view as a project leader was the pandemic. What was, from your point of view, the most challenging effort we had to make all together, and then the best thing?
Well, the pandemic definitely was the greatest hindrance in this project, and I think we have a project with fantastic partners, real experts around the table. So there were no problems, but more solutions than we ever thought at the beginning. And I'm very pleased to present those results together with my colleagues to you in the next hour.
Thank you so much. So good luck to you. Thanks, and let's see our outcomes. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Good morning, everybody. Shall we get practical? My name is Klaus Machata. I'm a traffic engineer with the Austrian Road Safety Board, based in Vienna, Austria. And it is my great pleasure to present to you, together with many of my colleagues, what we have achieved in this project, together for you in this room and for you connected over the internet. Well, I think all of us in this room, all of us connected over the internet, we are in some way connected to the problem of cycling, safe infrastructure provision. And I'm pretty sure that many of us have asked ourselves one of these questions. How could I get more people to cycle? And we just heard from several of our previous speakers, by providing safe infrastructure. Well, another question would be how safe or how unsafe is my existing cycling infrastructure? Another question would be where, if I have some money left, where shall I invest best in the existing cycle infrastructure I do have in my country, in my jurisdiction? Or another question would be where there is nothing existing yet in terms of cycling infrastructure, where should I provide new routes and how should they look like? Well, if some of these questions seem familiar to you, then you are definitely in the right place today, because the main objective of the SABRINA project was obviously to help providing better infrastructure for cyclists in order to avoid more of these accidents that are, so many of them are caused by lousy infrastructure, as we have it in absolutely all of our countries across Europe, and specifically also in the Danube region. So we want less of this infrastructure and more of that infrastructure. And in order to come to this bright future in cycling safety, we started off in the SABRINA project by assessing cycling routes, specifically EuroVelo routes in all 9 participating countries. We already heard the figure of 2,500 kilometers that were surveyed across the Danube region. I have now the pleasure to ask my dear colleague Marko Sevrovic to stage. Marko Sevrovic, assistant professor of Zagreb University, transport planning faculty, but also with the EuroRAP institution.
Yeah, with the EIRA, European Institute for Road Assessment in Slovenia, which is a lead partner in this project, and I had the opportunity to, let's say, lead the technical parts, also with Olivera and my colleague Alenka here doing the administration and leading the project in in a very good manner. So my part was the technical things. So as you know, we did surveys in the Danube area countries. Surveys were planned, of course, before the COVID crisis. And you can imagine what struggles we had when we had to travel 9 countries with the lockdowns. It was amazing. I think more than 15 COVID tests. That was all before the vaccines and everything. So it was definitely a big struggle. And what we did, the idea behind the project is, could we quantify the road safety of the EuroVelo routes? We all know that EuroVelo as a concept gives us, as I would say, a corridor. It shows you where a route should go. But also, those routes are sometimes very precise. You can download the GPX tracks, very precise, that guide you on a certain road. And those roads were our interest. We wanted to figure out how many sections of those routes are actually cycle-friendly, are good for cycling, but not in terms of the quality itself, more in terms of the actual risk that you have as a cyclist traveling on those routes. So, as you see on this slide, we've covered more than 2,500 kilometers of those routes, mostly EuroVelo 6, 8, 9, 11, 13, 14. These are the EuroVelo routes numbers. You can see the map of the routes which were surveyed in sections. How we did the survey? So, the first idea was that we actually use the existing equipment that is already available for the EuroRAP assessments. But, of course, since we were surveying the cycle routes, which are in parts not drivable by a survey vehicle, we had to also develop a bike that had the equipment, in this case a HD camera, 360 camera, so basically 2 cameras, which are equipped also with a GPS device that pinpoints the position of the images and videos taken alongside the route. So it was a pedelec. As you can see, it was a lot of kilometers we had to travel, so it was kind of easier if we use that type of vehicles. But for, let's say, mixed routes, we did use a car, a SUV, the one from FPZ that you see in this image, which was equipped by a camera, something very similar to Street View, as you are all very familiar with. So, in that sense, we faced a lot of challenges. So, I have to be honest with you, I hope the police is not listening here. We had to do a lot of traffic violation to even survey the routes. Parts of the routes are illegal to cycle. You have a EuroVelo route that has a ban for the cycling. Then you have obstacles, and this one here in Bulgaria, where you had a fallen tree, or you have a section which is fully undrivable with bushes. We had to have a Machata here, a narrow passage in Croatia, where this is the EuroVelo route. So you can see it's very challenging. And I would say for experienced cyclists, it would be a very, let's say, nice route. But of course, if you think about cycling as a commuting, it's something that is not drivable. And then signs like this, which are low, so you have to get down from your bike. And you can imagine, I think we broke 1 or 2 cameras on locations like this, where the person driving actually forgot he has a camera on a pole, and the camera just stayed on the locations like that. So the survey results, in the end, were represented in a FPZ GIS system, which is a system that is able to play the recorded GPS files linked with the videos. So basically, you have all the videos on a map, and wherever you click, similar as Street View, you get the video of the recording of that route. And this is the initial, let's say, thing that we used for the survey that my colleagues will be explaining a little bit later.
Marko, the Tour de France has been mentioned by an earlier speaker today. You really did a Tour de France across Europe.
Yeah.
I remember coming with your team to Austria in the mid of summer at 30+ temperatures and doing at least 300 kilometers or so, going up the Danube River, going up the Mura River. in 3 days.
Yeah.
So you really did some cycling.
Yeah, one of my colleagues, Marian from the faculty, he managed to survey 126 kilometers in 1 day. So you can imagine how much cycling he did. I personally took the second day because he was, of course, too tired, and I did 64 kilometers in 1 day with an e-pedelec. Okay, for my constitution, you can see it. But I managed to empty 3 batteries on the way.
Okay.
So yeah, but it was challenging. But in Austria, the cycling is a nice experience. So the Danube route was perfect because you have restaurants, coffee shops, so you can sit and have a drink and then cycle, and the infrastructure is perfect, a lot of people, and it's much different than experience we had in parts of Croatia, parts of Romania, parts of Bulgaria, which were much worse.
I'm very much looking forward to see such infrastructure now developing in all countries. I think we are all developing. Yeah, Marko, may I ask you to take the floor again and present us with the 3 methods that you have used to assess the routes that you have surveyed?
Yeah, so basically, as I mentioned earlier, we wanted to quantify road safety. And why we are doing it? Because we had such a good experience with using the EuroRAP methodology. I don't know how much you know, but in Europe, 10, 15 years ago, we started using the EuroRAP methodology that evolved into the EuroRAP methodology, which is the star rating of roads. Similar to what you do with cars. So you all heard about Euro NCAP, where you have stars for cars that shows you how a car would protect you in case of a crash. So if you have a 5-star car, if you have a crash, you will be, let's say, more likely to survive than in a 1-star car. So we do basically the same for the roads. So the EuroRAP star rating gives 1 star to a road which is very unsafe, meaning that if you make a small mistake and you leave the carriageway, you will most likely die. And there are roads which are 5 stars where those mistakes will not cause a fatal and serious injury. So we always think about the driver who is responsible of the driving, but the infrastructure is in a way responsible of the probability of this driver making a mistake, and also the likelihood of a fatal or serious accident after the mistake has been made. Okay, so that's how we try to use this approach also on the cycling routes. So the EuroRAP star rating methodology does take into account the 4 road user types. So the vehicle users, the pedestrians, the motorcycles, and cyclists. But the thing is that the EuroRAP methodology only takes into account interaction between vehicles, cars, trucks, buses, and cyclists. So when we did the survey, the EuroRAP survey was done only on the mixed traffic roads, because of course you can't do the EuroRAP methodology on cycle-only roads because it takes into account only the interactions between the vehicles and the cyclists. The EuroRAP star rating is based on something which in the scientific world is called a crash modification factors. It actually gives you the likelihood, the probabilities of a severity of a crash depending on the infrastructure type, linked with the speed and the flow, which are, of course, the elements of evolution of a crash. Of course, you probably know, I guess some of you are engineers, that the energy in a crash rises with a square with the velocity. So every increase in speed actually multiplies exponentially the energy involved in a crash. So of course, the infrastructure can be safe at low speeds, but can be very unsafe at high speeds. This also comes with a distance. So if you have cyclists mixed with the cars at very high speeds, you don't have to be a scientist to understand that this is very dangerous. If the cyclists are segregated, if the speeds are lower, or if the flows are lower, you will get the better star rating in the interaction between the cyclists and the cars. So this is the first approach we've taken in SABRINA project. But we also wanted to test out a new methodology developed by EuroRAP. It's called the CycleRAP methodology. The CycleRAP methodology introduces 4 different new crash types into the risk assessment methodology. One of them is conflicts with vehicles, that was also in the EuroRAP methodology, but also vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to pedestrian, and crashes which do not involve anyone else except the cyclists. So it uses a similar approach of mapping the infrastructure based, again, on the crash modification factors. Still, the methodology is publicly available, but it's still in development. And you can probably suggest why there are no so many informations about those crash types. So the EuroRAP methodology itself is very well documented based on the actual data of crashes, a lot of crashes, years of experience. We could identify risks. But for the cyclists, we have an issue because we don't really know how many crashes are there, especially the ones which are near misses, especially the ones which are slight injuries. So those are still things that we have to work on in the future. So the maps of CycleRAP look a little bit different than EuroRAP, but we categorize those roads in levels. So we have low risk, medium risk, high risk, and extreme risks. And you can see here one section in the south of Croatia where you can really see there is mostly everything. So you have sections which are very low risk and sections which are extreme risks, such as the one that I showed you. But we did this for the network that was surveyed in SABRINA. Also, having our friends from ECF involved in the project, we also wanted to integrate the three methodologies, the EuroRAP methodology, star rating, the CycleRAP methodology, and the European certification standard, which is also, in a way, an assessment methodology, but that takes also into account not only the safety, but also the accessibility, drivability, attractiveness of a route. So we wanted to try to do a link between those three methodologies to try to assess the routes and see how they actually compare in different methodology. The main goal of the ECS is to certify the routes. So the thing is that the routes can be certified by the European certification standards if they meet some criteria. So you have essential, important, and additional criteria. Essential criteria means that regular cyclists, which are, let's say, which are experienced, are good cyclists, could travel those routes, and those criteria are, let's say, maybe not so demanding, but then the methodology also introduces additional criteria which are important, and they have to be met on a certain amount of route for the route to be, let's say, certified at a standard level. And the most demanding criteria, which is basically the sections of the routes which are good for any type of cyclist, even small kids, as we saw in a lot of presentations from our previous speakers. So in that sense, let's say what we did in this project, my colleagues will explain later. We developed a methodology, a tool that integrates all three methodology into one, and that helps you actually make a decision of what type of routes you need to have in the future and how will they perform in terms of road safety for your cyclists in the future.
Thanks a lot, Marko. Looking at the results for my country, for Austria, I realized that there are three methods, and these three methods have partly different results. Does it make, for all stakeholders reviewing their own results for their own countries, does it make sense to have a look at all the three methodologies and compare them and draw the conclusions from all of the three of them?
Yeah, I would absolutely say yes. So the EuroRAP methodology gives a lot of, let's say, inputs and feedbacks on how the road is performing, and it can help you make a decision whether you should have cyclists on this road or not. And then if you move them away, then CycleRAP is a good methodology to tell you how safe are the roads which are not mixed with the motorized traffic. And then ECS, I would say, as a final step where you'd actually certify this route in a way that it actually gives good information to the cyclists what kind of a service he can expect there. So he can, if the road is certified, he can expect the level of safety, and not only safety, but there are also things like stations, bike repair things, which are provided as an information from the ECS standard for the cyclist, so that he knows what he can expect when he comes on a certain route.
Thanks a lot, Marko, for your presentation. Thanks a lot. Now we had the surveys, we had the assessment methods, and now for the assessment results. I would like to ask my colleagues from Romania and Croatia, George Ursachi from ATA, Agile Transport Analysis, and Leonid Ljubotina from, again, Zagreb University, to present us with the SABRINA Web GIS, Geographical Information System, where all results are available.
Hi everyone, I'm very proud on one side to be part of this team, and I'm very honored to be in front of all of you. I'm also aware of the time, and I don't want to stand between the presentation and the lunch, so I'll try to be as quick as possible. But I want to say that everyone who wants more detail, most of you from Romania, you already know me, but also you can experience the booth from the guys from FBZ, and everything that is not covered in our talk can be covered definitely by the end of the day. So I will present a bit of the results from Romania. We did a Safer Cycling Investment Plan pilot, which I'll just quickly go through some of the stages because they will be repeated by my colleagues later. So as you see, this is an example of the results. I know I'm not proud, and probably none of us is, that we have a lot of dark and red, but that's the reality. And in this project, we wanted to make sure that we present the reality. We don't hide it under the cover. So on the EuroVelo route, we do have a pretty risky situation for cyclists. So this is the visualization of the VIDA of cyclist risk. Okay, and yeah, it's risky, but our pilot was aimed to understand. Okay, we can see it's risky, but is there anything we can do? So we used the web visualization tool, which is part of our tool, and we designed the route. We analyzed all the attributes for all the segments that were split to be coherent, and there was post-coding data that was added to increase the quality of the analysis. And if you have the curiosity, and I kind of advise you to have that curiosity, you'll see we also have videos or all of the routes, so everyone can analyze actually every 10 meters. Then we analyze that, and here is an example. So why is black and red? This is how the route looks like. How many people would like to go on bike on this route behind that trailer or in front of that trailer? Anyone? No. Okay, but in the same time, we need to admit it's a reality. As you can see, there's not too much you actually can do. And we'll see what were the options that we thought of. And we also thought of an ideal option, which is actually not doable, but just for other projects. So as you see, visibility is okay. In a lot of the route is okay, but there is a heavy traffic and there is a lack of space, which is characterizing this route, which goes also for the urban. So you can see here an example of a small village. You still have no space to go with the bike. You will have a lot of cars parked. I don't know if they are parked wrongly because there are no parking spaces. There's no place for segregated cycle bikes or cycle routes or anything. So this is the reality. We need to face with that. But still, we can do something. And this is one of the strengths of the tool, that it allows you, after you analyze, it allows you to understand what can be done and what would be the costs and the benefits. With our safety investment plan, we did find out that there are some options which we can draw on the road. It's called SHARO. It's a shared roadway path, or roadway lane for cyclists. And that would actually improve the safety of the cyclist pretty much in these types of area, and would bring, and this is important for decision maker, would bring a benefit cost ratio of about 8, which is pretty high. So you would gain back in safety like 8 times the money you invest, only if you draw a small line. So further, you will find out, you will see examples where even more complex things can be done. I won't keep the mic anymore, because I think those are more interesting. But reach to me if you have questions.
Thank you, George, for this introduction. As you could see, George was here to talk about some bad examples that we spotted along the way. So I'll take now with some good examples that we managed to find. And of course, this is Austria. So our session moderator is Austrian, and I cannot but praise how good their infrastructure is if I want to be part of this conference. So basically, in Austria, yes, the approach is quite different. So we surveyed the EuroVelo 6 and 9. And as this session is also titled some important takeaways of the SABRINA project, I want to stress out that it's important to note, even if those routes are all EuroVelo routes, they are not developed to the same standard. So you can see here, it's quite safe. We had good results in Austria. Their infrastructure is in the rural settlement, separated from the traffic. You can see here a trailer, but this infrastructure is separated for cyclists. It's also protected by a guardrail, and that's why it scored high score using the EuroRAP methodology. The CycleRAP methodology showed good results as well. It's not only a thing in the rural areas, but also in urban areas where they try to separate traffic flows as much as possible, and it's quite a pleasure to cycle there. Besides EuroRAP, as I mentioned, the CycleRAP showed also good results, right because of that, because they separate the traffic flows. When there are low traffic flows that it can be mixed, they indicated with sharrows or some painted lanes. But the important here to note is not only Austria has good examples. We managed to find those as well in Croatia or in Bulgaria. Even though we had some bad examples in Bulgaria, as I was also part of the survey team, I found a section where I had to drag my bike across a bush, but that was a small section. In, for example, Russe, we have also to praise that. That's a good example. They have nice painted cycle lanes. They have separation of traffic, and it's quite a pleasure. You wouldn't believe, but when we presented at the Velocity in Ljubljana, some people came to me and they asked, you cycled part of the routes. Would you recommend us something on the EuroVelo 8 route? And occasionally I did cycle that also for my hobby. And I said, well, yes, you can find it, on the EuroVelo page. It seems nice and everything, but actually no. Try to avoid some of the sections because you will be mixed with traffic. And I had the experience when I had a heavy vehicle, a truck, overtaking me speeding, and I was really stressed out about that. So as Marko mentioned earlier, I think that one of the main things of the SABRINA project is that we also need to define those routes as corridors until they are fully accredited or certified, and then we can call them routes. And with that, I would like to conclude my panel. So here you can see the good examples from Austria. That would be all. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Leonid and George. I cannot underestimate. I have to say this again. 2,500 kilometers across Europe, across the Danube region, of videos, 360 and frontal video. So even if you're not a cycling expert, that makes a good deal of slow TV watching. Partly thrilling expertise also in other areas, in other parts. Andelo, the floor is yours, because now we have seen how we dealt with the results in a WebGIS system. But what is more, we have been providing, Andelo has been providing us predominantly with a new tool, a decision-making tool that makes possible the assessment of future routes or of alternative routes, of new designs. But Andelo, may I ask you to present your baby to us?
I just have to say that you are underestimating significantly how all the partners actually contributed to this. I may have coordinated it, but we all very much contributed. So, First, before I actually get into the tool, question for everybody. Let us consider these two examples here. Which example is actually safer for cyclists? And I made it a bit easy, so you will probably know the right answer right away. But let's go ahead with the example. The left one is a nice route in Slovenia, Poransana, and it has virtually no vehicles, only some service vehicles sometimes, and the speeds are rather low. It also has, for example, pedestrian flows and very high cycling flows. It's a popular EuroVelo route there. We also have another example on the right, which is a cycling lane road connecting Maribor with the northern Austrian border. And it has a, let's say, for example, low vehicle flow. It has no bicyclists almost, and it almost has no pedestrians. Speed limit here is 90 kilometers per hour. So I guess everybody correctly assumed that the left example is safer. But this is just a perception. And how can we actually quantify this? Let's say we have a project, we need to quantify which one is safer. You can use the EuroRAP methodology, and you can get your routes star rated. And then you will get that maybe the right one is 2 out of 5 stars, maybe it's 3. The second one is maybe 4 or 5. But this assessment will take some time. And also it is technically complicated to do. You need to either be trained or you need to have somebody that knows what they're doing. You can also perform a CycloRAP assessment on these two routes, and you can get what is the risk for the cyclists involved. Maybe the right one is extreme, maybe not. Maybe the left one is good or medium or low risk. We cannot know for certain unless we actually do a month or two of actually surveying the road. But under the SABRINA project, we actually developed a tool where you can actually assess this in 5 clicks. Okay, the resolution is a bit lower down for some reason. So basically, what you can do here, you select an infrastructure layout, you select the flows, and within the 5 clicks, you actually get these results. And now we actually know that the left example has 5 out of 5 star rating, which is the maximum that you can achieve, so it's very safe. Also has a low risk level in CycloRAP, and the right one is a bit unsafer, and this is mainly due to very high speeds that are developing here. The toolkit will also give you some other non-safety related facts about the cross-sections that you selected, such as cost per 100 meters and the service life of the infrastructure when you need to actually renew the infrastructure for it to be effective. And this is not only for a certain segment. You can attribute these to the entire routes. So, for example, if you have a 100-kilometer route, a 200-kilometer route, you can do the route and actually attribute these cross sections and get the results for your entire route. The process contains 4 elementary steps. So firstly, you will need to define your route within the GIS module or import it. After that, you will need to split the route where significant infrastructure or flow changes are happening, and then you will need to attribute these flows to the sections that you split. And after that, you simply click Assess, and you actually get the results in EuroRAP and CycloRAP for your entire route. What other things can you do within the SCRT? So you can plan out your route, and you can get some safety upgrade recommendations if you input the price. So you can input the investment price. Let's say you have a couple of million euros to invest, and the SCRT will suggest some alternatives to the current state while considering the price of. You can also make an investment plan with the SCRT tool. This cost-benefit investment plan is heavily inspired by EuroRAP Sweden. And what you can do with some advanced input parameters like fatalities that happened on your route and some economical parameters like GDP per capita and so on for your country, you can actually get how much benefit would you get if you, for example, upgrade the segment of the route that has no infrastructure to something that's barrier protected or barrier segregated lanes, or maybe if you put the sharrows. You can also add DCS point attributes on your routes, and these can also be assessed, results module. So for example, you can add points that are indicating the cultural heritage or the nice bike parking places, cycling accommodations, and so on. And as I said, they will be assessed within the modules for your route. Something that's also pretty significant is that you can compare the results of two routes. If you define two routes, it doesn't matter what length they are or where they are, you can compare the results. And also, you can compare different infrastructure layouts on the same route. So for example, if I have the current state of the route, which is something, scored as something, I can also define the future upgrade. I have a route that has nothing. How will the infrastructure change compare with this? You can very easily do it within SCRT. So this is it regarding the SCRT for now. We will have a more detailed demonstration of the tool after lunch, and you can always come to the SABRINA Experience booth, that monitor over there, where we can discuss it a bit more in person. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Andelo. Ladies and gentlemen, all of this has been designed and implemented in only a couple of months' time. Andelo, congratulations to that. But it has not only been developed, it has also been tested in all of the 9 countries. We ran pilots in all the 9 countries, 3 different kinds of pilots. The missing link pilot. So we tested in the system new routes which are not existing today. Another type of pilot we have been implementing in 3 countries was the star rating of designs pilot. So this is, so to say, the road safety audit for the cycling infrastructure. So you have an existing route, and then you have a design for an improvement of that route. And you can assess the difference between the existing route and the new design, which you have only on paper, normally, in that system. And last but not least, the safer cycling infrastructure investment plans. So this is something the system proposes to you for an existing or a new route. The system will propose you, what you will see in practice later, will propose you different solutions, different cost-effective solutions that you can compare and then implement. But let us start with the Slovenian pilot on the missing link. I would like to invite Boštjan Primč of the municipality of Ilirska Bistrica to present the missing link pilot. Thank you.
Klaus, thank you for introducing me. I'm Boštjan Primč from a municipality in south of Slovenia. We have carried out a missing link pilot. We wanted to establish a new missing link that connects 2 points of EuroVelo 8, the Mediterranean route that comes from the west to the Gulf of Trieste, continues around Istria along the coast to the Gulf of Kvarner, and then on the east coast of Adriatic to the south. The missing links connects 2 places from the town of Trieste to the town of Reka, and shortening the route, Istrian route that measures around 400 kilometers to the new 90-kilometer routes that takes approximately 2 or 3 days less of cycling. The route firstly uses the part of EuroVelo 9 corridor to the town of Kozina, and then continues to Ilirska Bistrica. We have assessed this part of missing link because the following part is already in place and in design phase. and the Croatian part is handled out by our colleagues in FPZ. We have two alternatives that can be used. One is the valley route that connects Kozina and Ilierska Bistrica over the valley. It's ideal from the topographical point of view because it runs along the river, but it has a disadvantage that it runs on the main road with very heavy traffic that exceeds 5,000 vehicles per day in the year. Another route that we considered is the hilly route along the Brkini Hills. That is more challenging in terms of elevation because it has around 700 meters of climbs, but it has very nice views, and it runs on local roads that don't have traffic above 250 cars per day. So we entered both these routes into SCRT. We divided them into sections depending on the type of infrastructure, flow and speed of traffic. And we get first the result for the current state. As you can see, the Brkini Hills is a bit safer route than Vreme Valley. It has approximately 10% more of 2 stars rated tracks. While in the cycle RAP, both routes are measured as extremely risky, so they are approximately the same type. When considering the potential improvement on the Brkini routes, which isn't favorable in terms of the hills, we have only planned Shero type of upgrade that runs the cyclists along with the traffic. But on the Vreme, on the valley route, we have planned a separate cycling lane that is more demanding to build, but it ultimately gets the desired state of the safety. As you can see, the Brkini Hills route doesn't get much more improved than the current state, only with the introduction of Shero. So in order to ensure the infrastructure safety, only the valley route with separate cycling lane is appropriate. But still, in the short term, before the infrastructure is built, it is still sensible to guide the cyclists over the Brkini, but we have to strive to improve or to build the new cycling lane in the future.
Thanks a lot, Bostian. Well, it seems this tool is really helpful to assess the comparison between two alternatives' future routes.
Yes, it gets you a clear idea what we are doing, because before we thought that with the hilly route we will solve everything, but now we see that this is only a first step and we have to try harder to improve also.
This is all about evidence-based. Thanks a lot, Bostian. Next evidence base is my colleague Zsombor Aracki from the experts of Westpannon, Hungary, who will introduce you to the star rating of designs pilot in the city of Kőszeg, I think.
First of all, let me say a big thank you for having us here. It's really a great honor to be present at this beautiful conference. And yes, in our pilot report, I wrote that the SCRT is a powerful tool to persuade decision makers. Fortunately, in our country, in Hungary, cycling has become kind of a key topic recently. And this way, we didn't even have to convince decision makers. So they are aware of the fact that some parts of our EuroVelo network needs to be revised. The county government has already contracted a company to rethink part of the EuroVelo 13 Iron Curtain trail around Kőszeg. It's a small town next to the Austrian border. Our pilot is related to this section, so this is where the town of Kőszeg is connected to the neighboring village of Szák through the really busy roads of the inner town and the main road that connects the 5 villages surrounding Kőszeg. So it's kind of not a high traffic road, but it's not a pleasant thing to cycle there, not even for everyday cyclists. So by using the SCRT, we intended to obtain quantitative information on how this planned upgrade could improve cycling safety in the region. So as you can see, with the green line, the new planned route tried to avoid this conflict zone of the inner town by going into the opposite direction through low-traffic local roads and through the beautiful wine hill of Kőszeg, and then joining back to the main road, but there's a separated cycling path is planned to be built. And we also, let's say, explored an alternative version that utilizes the recently carried out infrastructure developments. So it's basically, there's a new segregated path that connects the highly accommodated residential zone with the commercial zone. As you can see, it's clear that this version doesn't solve the majority of the problems. And it's even clearer if you look at the map that indicates the accidents involving cyclists in the last 20 years. So as you can see, our alternative version uses the same itinerary for the first few hundred meters. So this way it cannot bypass this part. Okay, as you can see, there has been accidents also right along the planned new route, right next to the main square, but I think it's still a better option than going this way. And this fact is clearly represented by the evaluation of the SCRT tool. As you can see, there, the increasement regarding the star rating score, which means that the lower the score, the safer the route is. So it's clear that the planned new route provides the highest benefits among all the alternative versions and to the current one, even if around half of the new route still falls into the extreme risk category, but at least it improved to be 2-star ratings. So to sum up, I would like to say that the tool is not only useful to persuade decision makers, but it's also a great tool that can back up your development ideas. And also, it's really fun. You can play around with it, and you can explore the different, sometimes crazy ideas very easily. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jean-Bor. Thanks a lot. A lot of figures, but I can tell you, you get used to this and learn to read this very fast. As a final speaker for the pilots, may I ask George to come present the Romanian pilots on safer cycling infrastructure investment plans. Difficult term.
And here are the missing slides from my head. Okay, so as I said, we've done the safer cycling investment infrastructure investment plan for Romania. Let's see. So we only took a piece of like 55 kilometers from Gaura cu Muscă, interesting name, to Svinica. This is how the route is typically on that part. We did all the stuff that were presented in the previous pilots, and we wanted to see the feasible upgrade scenario. Here we defined the route, split it in 7 sections, and we found out that there are 2 feasible scenarios with Sharo, as I said, and dedicated bicycle line on roadway, which is a bit more difficult in some parts. And we analyzed actually 3 scenarios with a combination. So 1 with Sharo, 1 with dedicated line, and a combination of that. As you can see, for these scenarios, for the first one, which is more realistic, we have a 8.2 benefit to cost ratio. So for an investment of 1.2 million, you would have benefits of almost 10 million. Second scenario, and we would save like 53 in a period of 20 years, like 53 fatal and serious injuries. For the second scenario, which is a bit harder, but it's still probably possible on 98% or more of the route, we would save 140 fatal and serious injuries, and would have a pretty high benefit-cost ratio. The third scenario is actually a combination in terms of all three elements presented. It would be a kind of weighted average between the two. So for more information, please do use the booth in the break.
So if you go along the whole Danube cycling route, from Austria, from Germany to Austria and then to Romania, it gets a bit more thrilling in the end, but there may be an update in the future. So now we've been showing you how we used this tool, in very practical terms, but actually the idea is that you in this room, you connected via the net, use the tool in the future. And this is why we would like to train you using this tool and the whole methodology that has been developed in this project. May I invite, therefore, Bostian, who is leading the training part of that project, to present very shortly what we will be doing in the next 2 months.
Okay, thank you, Klaus, once again. It's not enough to establish the tool, we also have to get new users to use it and to get its benefits on the wider area. So we have prepared an educational material that supports the new users and helps them to introduce the SCRT tools and step-by-step guide how to use it. We have already, as preparational activities, made training in the use for ECS and EuroRAP methodology that was intended for the traffic experts in the project, but also for the NGOs in this field. A part of the training concept is compromised of the overview of the legislations, on the overview of the good and bad practice that we establish in the Danube area, the cycling routes assessment methodologies, and the main part is the introduction of the use of CCRT. This is, as I said, a step-by-step guide on the tool, how to prepare and how to use it. As a part of activities, we have already completed the train-the-trainer training that is also saved in the video format and will be displayed on the SCRT webpage. But also we will put detailed written guides how to use the SCRT toolkit. The package is comprised also from syllabus and curriculum to help the future users to organize new training and develop the network of SCRT users. As a part of the project, we also all the partners, we conduct national training in their own countries. So every partner will get a target group and carry out learning activities so that it introduces how to use the toolkit in the selection of the appropriate routes, in selection of the appropriate type of infrastructure, and also to make an investment plan based on the results.
Thanks a lot, Bostian. And of course, we would like to see every one of you in these trainings and in the future using this tool. This takes me to our last speaker of this morning session. My colleague Maria will present to you what you have already seen at the registration booth. A lot of paper, 30 fact sheets, best practice report and stuff. Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Looking at my watch, I'll keep it short and precise so you're all able to grab a coffee.
I'm so sorry that I failed as a moderator. We are running a bit
worries.
late.
No worries there. Yeah, as I said, I'll keep it short and precise. But before I present all our documents to you, I'd just like to give you an impression on what our base was and where we had to start before actually producing those documents. So we actually had to talk to over 250 stakeholders in 9 countries to get an impression of the current state in all the countries in the Danube region. And our key findings actually showed us what we already expected, that there's a real need to look at road safety and quality of cycling infrastructure, and that cycling is still seen as a kind of leisure activity throughout the countries, and looking at the decision makers, which isn't what we are actually pointing at. So for us, it was important give some good recommendations on strategies, funding, accessibility of data, but also looking at the actual perception of safety when looking at the cyclists. So the first document I'd like to present to you is our best practice recommendations report. I actually have it here in a printed version, and you can find it outside. For all of you who are here online, you can also find it online on our website, and you can download it. So don't be too sad about not being here today. For everybody who's here, you can grab it when you go out and have a look at it. What we were actually focusing on was, as already mentioned, strategies, not only on national level, also international, regional and local, looking at the assessment of cycling infrastructure and giving you a bit of advice and recommendation on how to actually plan cycling infrastructure in a way that it's safe for cyclists. And we were also focusing on how you actually can improve infrastructure that's already there. It's not only one document, it's actually 30. So you can think about the workload we had to put into here. Maybe Klaus can help me here, because I probably won't be able to grab it with one hand. Oh, it's like 30 fact sheets on risks, solutions, and positive effects, all dealing with cycling infrastructure, giving you best advice on what's actually going wrong at the moment and what we could improve, on solutions, how you're able to improve it, and on positive effects overall, looking at cycling and why it is so important to us. So yeah, as I said, I kept it short and precise, and I'm handing over to Klaus again.
Thanks a lot, Maria. Thanks a lot. This takes me to my last slide, actually, and I would like to ask Raluca, our host today, to stage. We have been showing you what Sabrina has been produced. We hope that you will be making use of it. Raluca, welcome. You are one of the key cycling stakeholders, so to say, in Romania. President of Green Revolution, the owner of the cycling rental system in this city.
Yes.
That's something. President, Vice President of ECF, European Cycle Federation, for many years. I could go on forever. Looking at all these results of Sabrina and looking at your country, what is your reaction? How do you feel about what is on the table now?
The first impact was like sad. It was everything black. This 1-star ratings on the EuroVelo routes and like this. But on the other hand, I'm really optimistic because we have the tools right now. We develop them. We have a good community. It's so simple to address and to use it, and also to share the information. And it's in fact is my biggest aim, to use the results of the Sabrina outcome, either the printed versions, and it's really impressive if you go outside and see they are not just the same. They are all of the dead ones outside are different. So I really encourage you to use them, and I encourage to spread the word, and also in the Romanian institutions also here present. And I'm really happy to have from so different kind of stakeholder groups, people present here to make use of the tool, to make use of the time here in terms of networking. And that's why I will say, Klaus, I'm very optimistic, because I think that right now, also on political level, in terms of legislation, but also investment, also the decision level in terms of authorities, am I happy that we have also people from the county of Timiș, for example, here the vice president is present. It shows really people are getting interested, and the impact of cycling is not something to put aside. It really contributes on climate fight, and it really contributes to a better and safer life in the cities and in the countries we are living in. So thank you so much again for this.